It is an absolute honor to be here today. I just want to thank Dr. Wright for putting this together, bringing us together, for the sponsors helping make this happen. I don't know there's really anything more important than these conversations, certainly for us. I really want to talk about foundations of resilience. I'm not going to be talking about pharmacology. Pharmacology is obviously very, very important, but I want to talk about how to create an efficient, effective foundation that allows those drugs and those interventions to have the most efficacy possible. I've spent my entire life really putting together the psychology and the physiology to help us understand how to optimize our attentional capacity and our energy production. So I'm a psychophysiologist, and that's indeed what I research, the interrelationships between our psychology and our psychological processes and our physiological responses and vice versa. So today, I'm going to share with you the best of, everything that I've learned in my research, in my work with professional athletes, in my work with high stakes, high stress environments, frontline healthcare clinicians, CEOs, and folks like yourself. I have access to millions and millions and millions of data sets where I can really put together this puzzle between our psychological functioning and our physiological processes. I'm super, super passionate about understanding how to rest. I truly believe that one of the most important skills of the 21st century is understanding how to deactivate our nervous system. Because we spend, let's face it, a bulk of our lives in an activated state. And this is just the traps of modernity. It is the world that we live in today. When we think about the political turmoil, when we think about the uncertainty of the geopolitical landscape, when we think about just our stress in raising our children, right? There's also other stressors that come in terms of just exposure to light at night. And it sounds so benign, but light at night is one of the most deleterious impacts on our health, on our hormonal functioning, on our ability to deactivate and sleep. There's nothing more frustrating than not being able to get into a beautiful, restful sleep.
Amen.
Right? I mean, fuck. And I know we're in this thing together, right? Like we need to figure out how to help each other. We need to understand the best practices. And the fact is we can't wing it. We don't have that luxury in perimenopause and menopause to wing it. We have to freaking get strategic, right? We have to share best practices. We need to figure out what works for us as individuals. Because as Dr. Stephanie said, what works for you is going to not maybe work for me, right? We all have different lifestyle constraints, right? We have different genetics. We have different capacities in terms of our ability to work out, right? But what we need to do together is we need to build our efficacy. Dr. Suzanne mentioned purpose. And I don't know if you remember that graph, but the relationship between the degree to which we have purpose and meaning in our life and our mortality rate. Purpose is a core psychological need. And we have 3 core psychological needs. And self-efficacy is one of them. Purpose is at the very top. Control. Do you feel like you have control over your situation, over your calendar, over your schedule, over your life, over your body, right? And that's what's so hard for us right now is we don't always feel like we have control over our body. And there's nothing more destabilizing than that. So we have to build our self-efficacy, which is the 3rd most important psychological need that we have as human beings. We have to feel like we have the skills and resources to operate and function in our lives. As parents, as partners, right? Our roles as professionals, and our self-efficacy over our health. And I forget who said it, and I know we hear this a lot, no one's coming to save you. Well, that is the truth, right? And we're so, from a policy perspective, we're a decade and a half away from being in a position for our OBGYNs to know what the hell is going on, right? So we have to fight for each other, we have to fight for ourselves, We have to get educated. We have to build our self-efficacy, right? Because when you start to have purpose and you start to have control and you start to feel self-efficacy, you are in a position where you're more in control of your stress. Okay? And getting in control of our stress is going to have a direct relationship with our ability to sleep at night, with our ability to recover and wake up tomorrow to feel refreshed enough to work out, to move our body, to put the right kind of foods in our body, right? It's all related. I'm going to talk about light a ton, okay? And this is, I think, an area that I do a lot of research in. My PhD work was in circadian physiology, so I'm really dialed into the importance of light behavior. So I'm going to be really, really frank, and I don't mean to scare you. I think, like Kelly, I'm going to bring it down, and then I'm going to bring it back up. But the fact is, we need to get a handle on our light behavior, okay? We have to, right? And I'll show you a figure that lays it out very, very clearly. Okay, sleep-wake consistency. Okay, this is related to not just our light behavior at night, but a whole bunch of things that we're doing during the day. And it's, when we're waking up in the morning, are we getting out and viewing natural light? Are we watching the sunset? These things seem so simple because they're democratically available and free. And unfortunately, I think that's why we dismiss them, right? But this is the foundation, folks, right? That we want to layer some of this other amazing advances in medicine on top of. But the stuff I'm talking about today is foundational. You want to get control of your health? These are the basics. This is stuff you got to do. Again, we don't have the luxury to not be strategic. Okay, meal timing is another super simple lever. Okay, just literally consolidating all of your calories within a 10 to 12 hour window when the sun is up can improve metabolic outcomes, can help with your sleep and recovery. This is one of the things I measure resting physiology, and again, millions of data sets, okay? And I can tell you the things that move around your resting physiology the most are meal timing, okay? So people who eat late meals, okay, have negative markers of heart rate and heart rate variability, as well as impaired sleep. Okay, alcohol is the other big one. And alcohol is tough, right? Lots of folks drinking last night, right? It's just part of the social fabric of our culture. But there is nothing more crushing to your sleep, to your circadian rhythms, to your ability to wake up tomorrow than alcohol consumption. And I just got to put it out there because it's just the truth. When I look at, so on our platform, we have women who can put their status in around perimenopause and menopause. And women in perimenopause and menopause who report drinking alcohol within 2 hours of bed have triple the sleep disturbances of everyone else, of the guys, okay? So I did an age-matched cohort with dudes who report drinking alcohol within 2 hours of bedtime. We have triple the disturbances. It is just the cross we bear. It's just the reality of the situation. So if you want to get your sleep online, you want to get a hold of your stress, okay, that is an easy thing to do, is to eliminate, well, it's easier said than done. It's easier said than done. But if you're going to drink, day drink, that seems to, that definitely has less of an impact, okay? All right, so I want to go through just a tiny bit of science so you can understand the relationship between our autonomic nervous system and HPA axis, okay? Our HPA axis is basically the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, but these two stress systems, these networks work together, okay? When our HPA axis is dysregulated, it comes at a massive physiological cost. Our autonomic nervous system, okay, relies on our HPA axis function. When our HPA axis is dysregulated, our autonomic nervous system is not capable of sending signals to the heart in an appropriate way. Your autonomic nervous system is mounting, right, your energy, right, and your stress response. so you can respond and adapt to your environment in a functional way. So when your HPA axis is dysregulated, that is, you have way too much stress, okay, relative to rest, you end up in a state where you are adapting to a lower level of functioning. And what is so sneaky about this, okay, is that we cannot perceive our own cognitive, physical, and emotional declines a lot of the times, all right? It just happens really subtly over time. So we need to be better about understanding how to incorporate rest to compensate for the moments of stress. And stress is not bad, right? This could be a really hard workout, right? But we need to figure out how to recover appropriately from that workout so we can get stronger. Okay, so this is really what we want, right? But unfortunately, when we're not managing the lifestyle factors that I just put up, this is what ends up happening. We end up adapting to a lower level of functioning. And this, honestly, right here, this is the basis for aging and disease. That is allostatic overload. That is when the stress of our lives, we don't have the capacity to mount enough of a response to be able to adapt to the stress of our life. And what happens here is cellular miscommunication. And when our cells can't communicate, okay, that is the basis of aging, and that is the basis of disease. So cellular communication is really, really critical. And part of that cellular communication is really getting our circadian rhythms aligned so we can improve our ability to sleep and also improve our mitochondrial health. Okay, so our circadian rhythms, which influences our sleep. Circadian rhythms sleep does not have a circadian rhythm. It's an output of the circadian clock. Okay, they're very tightly intertwined though. So we need to get our circadian behaviors online so we can fix our sleep, so we can improve our mitochondrial health, okay, which gives us a situation where we can match the demands in our environment. Okay, the demand mismatch is due to these things, okay? And what folks I think don't recognize is that HPA axis dysfunction is at the root of altering levels of every single hormone in our body. Okay, so again, when we talk about the foundation, right, give ourselves a chance, right? We need to adopt the behaviors that we know are going to alter and move around our hormones. So bright, sorry. And this is just kind of like slide vomit. I'm sorry, it's kind of a lot. But all I really want to show here is that short-term activation, okay, stress is not bad, right? But when we're in a situation where we're activated over long periods of time, that's when it becomes really maladaptive, all right? So understanding how to toggle between stress, between activated state and a deactivated state, again, is the skill, right? And the meal timing, the light behavior, moving our body, purpose, efficacy, control. Again, these are some of the core levers that help us manage stress, that put us in a situation where we can adapt to the stressors of our life in a functional way. Again, you want to think about that graph that was on the right-hand side, right, where we're stress, rest, and all of a sudden we're adapting in a functional way, okay? Women who suffer from more severe and bothersome perimenopausal symptoms exhibit alterations in HPA axis activity. Okay, Sawyer et al. 2020. Okay, so this is absolutely an area that we want to try to address. So how do we stay ahead? Okay, some of the entry points I've mentioned, but I think this is the figure that is just the mother of all figures. Okay, and Zurikat et al. Published this also in 2020. But what I love is that it shows the role of night-to-night sleep-wake variability. And this was the real aha moment in my PhD research that was so crystal clear, is that sleep-wake timing, in the degree to which it's consistent or inconsistent, predicts both physiological and psychological functioning in humans. So a regular sleep-wake time is so critical. But modernity makes it really hard, right? Because we have exposure to light at 24 hours of the day, right? So we have to get our light behavior on board if we want to even have a shot of going to bed at a consistent time. The other issue that happens is that, so from this night-to-night variability, so the more variability we have, we end up with circadian disruption, circadian misalignment, whatever the hell you want to call it, okay? It's not good, all right? Because what happens, folks, is you end up with reduced melatonin. And melatonin is a hormone that is not talked about enough, but it is so critical for us as women to protect our melatonin. You need to protect your melatonin. Tell me the most precious thing you have in your life. Your 2 kids? Your 2 kids, yeah. You need to protect your melatonin like you protect your 2 kids. Like, I'm not even kidding. It's that important, right? Melatonin is not just the hormone of darkness. Yes, in order to release melatonin, you need to be in a dark environment. And that's why after the sun sets, you need to figure out how to dim your environment. I have 2 teenagers, and this has been, it's a constant conversation and struggle in our house, but I get blue zero. I have no affiliation with that light, but we take out all the blue light. The fact is we have not adapted to blue light after the sun goes down. We haven't, right? Blue light is going to reduce your melatonin production. Melatonin and estrogen interact in a really profound way. Okay? So when we're not getting melatonin, that's going to alter our estrogen production. Right? And you can see where things go offline really, really quick. All right? So to give yourself a chance, okay, you need to eliminate or minimize blue light in the lead up to bed. Timing of sleep also matters. If I put every single one of us on a mountain in Colorado with no artificial light, we would fall asleep within 3 hours of each other, within 48 hours. And then we'd all fall asleep within 30 minutes of each other, which is insane, right? This notion of chronotypes doesn't really exist. Chronotype, or when, your preference for when you go to bed, is very much a preference. But from a biological standpoint, the variability is really only about 30 minutes between each of us. Isn't that wild? Right? So there's a sweet spot for when we need to go to bed, and it's around 9:30, 10. I know. Isn't that just, I know, it's mind-blowing. When I'm inside this literature, I'm like, I look at the hunter-gatherers, and I look at these experiments that Kenneth Wright has done on the mountains of Colorado with no artificial light, and everyone's falling asleep within 3.3 hours of each other, within 30 minutes. Everyone. It's wild, right? So we need to rethink sleep. Right? We need to what you're here in society is not, that is just they're modern trappings. We have to work together to kind of fight this, right? And we're fighting for our melatonin is really what it's about. And melatonin is not just about protecting estrogen and helping us sleep, right? It's going to do both of those things. It also protects our brain. It protects our brain, and when we're not producing melatonin, we become more insulin resistant. So there's a relationship between insulin sensitivity and melatonin production, right? So you can just kind of see how this one behavior, sleep-wake consistency, interacts to really impact us on a deep, deep level. So I have 36 seconds, so I'm like really buzzing through this. Can I take a question? Can I take a question? 34 seconds? Okay, yes.
So biohack,
Yeah.
I've really got that, like red light glasses, the red sauna, light plunging.
Yeah, baby.
In the morning.
Yeah, I'm absolutely a morning sun person. I get outside every single morning religiously. Cloud cover, doesn't matter, 5 to 20 minutes. Before, within 20 minutes of waking, generally, really important. But that's basically going to set your circadian rhythm. And that will help me feel sleepy 12 to 15 hours later. Okay, so seeing that morning light. So good sleep actually starts in the morning. Cold plunge, we see that for really high fit people. Okay, so people who are super fit, 2 times a week is maximum. We then start to see a deleterious effect on markers of recovery. If you are a low fit person, so a person who is not very fit, it seems that any amount of ice bath is going to promote recovery. We do see that there's an impact on sleep, and actually a positive impact on sleep, which is wild. So it looks like the timing is not as important necessarily, but I would say for women in menopause and perimenopause who are struggling with temperature regulation, I would actually keep it a little bit further away from sleep because it's going to really pull all of the heat to the extremity of your body and make it, I think, harder to fall asleep. So we don't want to do that. But good question. Yeah, I stack kind of all those modalities. I love infrared sauna. Yeah, but it's all these little things. They have a compound effect, right? And they position our nervous system to be regulated, right? And be in a position where we can then respond and adapt to stress in a more functional way. Yeah, beautiful question, yeah.
How are you managing your kids' time on the screen?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do I manage my kids' time on screens? We have no screens in the bedroom. So there's no TVs, there's no phones. Once it's sleep time, it's sleep time. And I had to get other moms in cahoots with me because it was hard, but I was let's just do this together, and we all leave all of my daughter's best friends, my son's best friends, we all kind of went in together. We actually got the high school to take away phones at the beginning of the day. So they don't have any phones during the day as well. But yeah, I mean, it's hard with teenagers because, they just roll their eyes and they just hate you. So, yeah. So, yeah, okay, yes. Yeah, great question. I'm in Boston too. So northern latitude folks, you have to be really diligent about getting outdoor during the day. There is a circadian dead zone between 10 p.m. and 4 p.m. And I know, the sun is setting around 4:30 right now. But do whatever you can to get natural light when the sun is up. So if you wake up early, let's say you wake up at 6 a.m., the sun isn't out, bathe yourself in artificial light, just to tell your body that it's time to wake up, release that cortisol, and then once the sun finally comes out, even if it's cloud cover, natural light, get outside in the natural light. Again, this will help set the circadian rhythm. And then whenever you can watch the sunset, so important, right? Again, that tells your body it's time to deactivate, it's time to wind down, and that can be really powerful. Great question.